Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Okay, so back to Iraq real quick. Not a whole lot going on. Barzani is back from over there in Tehran. So he had some interesting things to bring back with him. Saudi's introducing a bill that I don't agree with. I'll share it with you guys. You guys give me your opinion. If you want to have peace and stability there in the Middle East, I think it's important that all the nations there find a way to get along with one another. Where the problems lie is when people's ideology is being forced on others. That's when it becomes a problem. So let's go over some of these things and let me know what you think. Before I get started, hit the thumbs up button. It helps me get past the YouTube algorithms that do their job of shadow banning people like me. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. Right now is a good time to be buying gold and silver. If you're too focused on the price, then you're focused on all the wrong reasons why you should be investing into gold and silver. But it is on a discount if you want to look at it that way, that's for sure. It hasn't changed the premiums, nor has it changed the demand. People are not falling for what's going on out there as far as the paper market having a liquidity issue, and selling the paper is only going to expose the comics in the LBMA. Then you're going to see the price for precious metals do what they should have done a long time ago. You're going to see a price correction. So when you go to buy your precious metals, do me a favor and check out our friends over at Money Metals Exchange. The link will be down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. So Halabasi from Tehran, we are working to completely restore stability in the region, taking serious steps. See, it's not just the issue of Iraq trying to get their feet on the ground. It doesn't help that Kurdistan has issues with Turkey, and Turkey is bombing Kurdistan. You also have issues in Syria, Yemen, civil wars there. And as long as those countries are unstable, this is a doorway for a lot of other bad actors to come through and raise hell for people in Iraq as well as Iran. If all these countries were just focused on their people and not interfering with other countries like Iran does with Iraq, trying to turn them into an Islamic state. This is what I'm talking about in that whole region over there, is the fact that you got people who want to force their ideology on the others instead of just respecting each other's differences. And this is why there's always issues, religious issues, political ideology issues. The irony in all this is if Iran would just focus on Iran and let Iraq be Iraq, but the two of them work together, they could help create a lot of stability in the region, especially in Yemen and Syria, and that allow their citizens to form their governments and run it their way. The problem is everybody wants to force their ideology on one another, and this is where the issue comes in. So Halabasi considered on Wednesday that Iran's stability reflects positively on Iraq, while stressing the need to preserve sovereignty and good neighborhood lines and protect the rights of its citizens. Yeah, that's what they say. If that's the case, Iran would tell the coordination framework to step aside. But they want these people in office so they can influence what's going on in Iraq. Halabasi said in a press conference he held in Tehran with the Iranian counterpart, the parliaments represent the people and strive to promote everything that can be reflected on their people. Halabasi stressed the continuity of cooperation between the two neighboring countries because Iran's stability reflects positively on Iraq and vice versa. We are working to completely restore stability in the region by taking serious steps, and our peoples we represent are looking forward to better relations, and that these steps will be reflected in what secures the futures with security and economic stability and removes the dangers and specters of war and crisis. He closed with preserving the sovereignty, good neighborhood lines, and protecting the rights of the citizen are the general principles that must be fixed in relations between the countries in the region and between the two neighboring countries. Yeah, I agree. That's just it, but that won't happen if you keep trying to force your ideology on one another. So the coordination framework is letting everybody know that they will participate in the next parliament session, and they'll be participating in the voting session on the food security law. So members of the framework told the news the coordination framework blocks will participate in a session that will be held after the Eid al-Holiday. If the session is dedicated to voting on the draft law on emergency support for food security and development and completing the selection of permanent committee membership. They stated that the law of emergency support for food security is one of the important laws and cares for segments of society, especially since the law supports the items of the ration card, social protection, and farms entitlements. Everyone must attend and vote on the law in the session scheduled to be held after the Eid al-Holiday. So Barzani met with American delegations and they agreed on the need to get out of Iraqi political crisis. So today, Barzani met with high-ranking U.S. diplomats and military delegations. A statement was issued by the presidency stated that at the beginning of the meeting, Stroh affirmed Americans' vision and policies by committing to the continuity of political and military support for Iraq and the Kurdistan region, and to proceed with joint partnership and cooperation between them, appreciating the sacrifices of the Peshmerga forces and the war against ISIS. For his part, Barzani renewed his thanks and appreciation for providing support and assistance by the United States and the international coalition against ISIS to Iraq and the Kurdistan region in the face of terrorism. And then the two sides talked about the importance, of course, of getting out of this political crisis and getting the government reformed as quickly as possible. It's kind of hard for Iraq to do any real deals because in there right now is an interim government. This isn't the ones that the people voted in. Not yet, anyways. And although they'll continue to function as a normal government, I think it makes it kind of hard to figure out who you're dealing with as far as other countries are concerned in dealing with Iraq. The last thing you want to do as a country is make all kinds of commitments with Iraq only to find out that, the government that gets in there is not one you want to support. Right, here's another issue. In another axis, the meeting described the movements and attacks of ISIS in different regions of Iraq and Syria as serious threats and real dangers. In the meantime, the two sides stressed the importance of cooperation and coordination between the Peshmerga and the Iraqi army so that they could support the international coalition in the face of these dangers and the complete elimination of ISIS, which has threatened peace and stability in Iraq and in the region. This is why I think it's important. Iran just focus on Iran and their people. Iraq just focus on Iraq and their people. But if the two countries can get past all the ideology and work together and help restore the region, which includes Syria and Yemen, this will help them eliminate ISIS because everything comes through there. Right now, most people don't know this, but in Libya, they're doing slave auctions. Interesting how the United States never brings that up. If it wasn't for the Democrats going in there and taking out their leader, Gaddafi, which is exactly what Hillary Clinton wanted, you wouldn't have slave auctions out there. But Gaddafi, how dare him talk about those evil words of leaving the petrodollar for a gold-backed dinar. Cost him his life. Here's the thing I was talking about that I don't agree with, and this is bad in my opinion. The article goes on to say Iraq solder bloc to introduce a bill to criminalize normalization with Israel. Wow. The political bloc of Iraq-influenced Shiite Clark Sauder is set to submit a bill criminalizing the normalization of ties with the Israel regime. The Sauder's bloc and its allies will soon announce a draft project to criminalize normalization and dealing with the Zionist entity at all. Sauder wrote in a tweet on Sunday, adding that the bill would be forwarded to the parliament for a vote. The issue of normalization and Israel's ambition to dominate our beloved Iraq, he said, was one of the core reasons that got the Sauder's movement involved in the electoral process. I never heard of Israel trying to do anything in Iraq. Maybe that's just it. I never heard of it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But Sauder is saying that Israel's ambition is to dominate Iraq. I didn't hear anything about that. So anyway, Sauder previously slammed a gathering that was held in Iraq's Kurdistan region last September with the aim of pushing for joining the so-called Abraham Accords and normalizing relations with the Tel Aviv regime. Back then, he said, Erbil must forbid such terrorist Zionist meetings. Why wouldn't you want peace there? That's the thing that's confusing. As a matter of fact, that's probably the closest that entire region has ever got close to peace. So this is back in September 2020. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain signed normalization deals with Israel. Morocco and Sudan later signed similar agreements with the Israel regime. The so-called Abraham Accords were pushed by the United States under former President Trump. Palestinians have denounced the normalization deals, describing them as a stab in the back and a betrayal to their cause. Late last year, the Iraq foreign minister reiterated Baghdad's support for the Palestinian cause, stressing that the Arab country categorically rejects any normalization scheme with the Tel Aviv regime. And you can see over here, Hezbollah warns of U.S. bids to woo Lebanon into normalization with Israel. So that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. If you surveyed all the normal people out of politics, and just said, what do you want? People just want peace. They want to be left alone. They want to go about their life doing what they want to do without anybody harming them or interfering in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, governments get in there and people with different ideology, and they just prevent the peace from happening. Look, if you say, hey, you don't like apples, okay, good, you don't like apples. But if you go around trying to force people into hating apples and stopping them by any means necessary, whether you beat them up, shoot them, kill them, hang them because they're eating apples, no, there has to be a line drawn there. That's ridiculous. So if you just say, hey, man, I hate apples, like, okay, well, I like apples. Too bad you hate apples. That's your thing. That's mine. That doesn't mean somebody has to get killed over it or beat up over it or attacked over it. You have your opinion. I have mine. Now, that's oversimplifying, obviously, but you get the point. Anyways, there's not going to be any real stability there in Iraq. There hasn't been for thousands of years. You have different tribes fighting with one another. Now you got different religions, different sectors, you name it. But one thing's for sure, Iraq has got to form a government. And they need to do it soon. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. Hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so. Because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. I'll catch you later. I'm out.